making 3D objects manifold for 3D printing is kind of a big deal. It is a check that you have to do every time before you go to 3D print. The way you can see it is, if your model is not manifold, it can definitely not be printed. If it is manifold, you might be able to print it. So you have to make sure it is manifold. It's a little bit of a difficult term. The easiest way to think of it is you check whether every point in your mesh is connected to an edge, and every edge is connected to two, count it, just two, no more, no less, polygons or faces. If it is so, your mesh should be one continuous closed shape. It could actually be two continuous closed shapes. That would also pass the check even if they don't intersect. So if you have two shapes next to each other, that would make it not printable, but it can still be manifold. I'd like to show you some examples to make it clear and to show you how it can be fixed. Starting with these simple cubes you see here. If I select them all and go into local view, we can see only, now I was already in local view. I'll do it again and I'll go select all of these and go into local view. We can see them all in here. Have a look at the bottom. You can see a little mouse symbol that will show you what I am clicking on, and we'll just show you the first cube. We have a cube here and I want to check whether or not it is manifold. You do that in edit mode, and in edit mode you make sure you have vertex select enabled so you can select individual points. Next, you select absolutely nothing. So I click on A on my keyboard to select nothing if I have anything selected. You can also use A to select everything. If you want to make sure it is nothing, you click it until everything is deselected. You can double check at the top of your window. Right now it shows me I have 0 out of 8 verts selected. That's good. I want to have nothing selected. Then go to your select menu and select non-manifold. So it will select everything that has a problem. There is a shortcut key, Shift Control Alt M. It's too long for me. I just go into the menu every time. I don't even want to remember. So I select non-manifold and instantly it selects the edges around the gap. Because this cube has a missing wall, it cannot be printed, it needs to be solid. So it selects where the issue is. In this case, it's very simple to correct. I can just hit F on my keyboard to create a face. Or if you want to know where it is in the menu, we can go to Mesh, Faces, and Make Edge/Face to make it closed. Then select nothing again by clicking on A and select non-manifold. After I select non-manifold, it still has 0 out of 8 selected. So this one is now manifold. That is great. We'll go on to the next one and see what's wrong with it. Make sure I have nothing selected, 0 out of 8, and do select non-manifold, and it selects these 2 points. So there is something wrong, even though I don't instantly know what is wrong to them or with them. So to have a closer look, let's look in wire mode. I'm in wireframe and you can see there is an edge going through my object. It's inside my object. It's not actually connected to any faces. It's just an edge going from one point to another, and it's not connected to anything. In this case, I can hit X and delete just this edge, and then go select non-manifold again, and it selects nothing. So this one is manifold. I'll go to the next one, and in edit mode I do select non-manifold, and it selects these edges. You see from the front there's an edge here and an edge by the back and a face. So there is a face inside my model going from one side to another. This can happen sometimes if you merge two models and you forget something, for instance. In this case I can select all the points that connect this face and delete only the face. And then select non-manifold, select nothing. That's another one. So we have a missing face, an edge going through a model, or a face intersecting the model. I'll go to the next one in edit mode, select non-manifold, and you see in this case this one would be really hard to see in solid view, but in wire view it's very clear. We have a point just connected to only one edge, which is going to connect to a point on the outside. In this case what we can do is just delete that vert. It automatically removes that edge. I'll do select non-manifold again, and we have nothing selected, so that one is also fixed. We're getting there slowly but surely. I'll go into edit mode, select nothing, and do select non-manifold. In this case it selects something, but again I can't see what is happening, so I go into wire view, and yep, there is one point here selected floating around. So it's just a point that isn't connected to anything. It has to be connected to an edge for it to work. So we can just delete that vert and we're done. Make sure, select non-manifold, and nothing is selected. I'll go to the last one and select nothing, select non-manifold, and it shows a point here. You can see on the edge and on the wire there's just a point selected, but this is something to look out for. If you have a point selected on a corner, normally you can see the color fades from the white to through some orange all the way to black along the edge. On this corner I have something selected and there is no color fade, so it is not actually connected to this edge. So I will move it with G to see what's happening. It was just a floating point on top of another point. You can get this quite often. Actually, if you, for instance, extrude something and escape whilst extruding, you still create an extra point. Easy way to get rid of double points if you have multiple that are all on the same location as other points. You can go in your menu on the left and remove doubles. Removing doubles is a very good method for cleaning up your mesh. Now that we've done the really basic little cubes, let's have a look at a real model that has some, well, most of the same problems, but it looks a little bit more realistic. So I'll go into edit mode again and select nothing to start with by clicking on A, and select non-manifold, and instantly we've got 70 verts that have a problem, and there's lots of stuff selected all the way around the model. Let's start with this really obvious one on his belly. Now there's just a point. It is connected to the edges. We can see the fade, but we don't really see what's wrong with it. We go into wire mode. You can see instantly, there's an edge, there's a point floating around. Delete the point. There we go. The edge is also gone. That's really neat. Wire mode is a very good indicator, or it shows you what is wrong a lot quicker usually than in solid mode. So we stay in wire mode and do select non-manifold again. Now there's a bunch of stuff going on here, and there's something very simple, looks like, in the foot. In this case there's just a face that I forgot to close, so select all 4 points and click F. Because it's such a simple shape, we can close it very easily. We'll do it again. Select nothing first, right? So we have 0, and then select non-manifold. If, by the way, you have a selection, so we've got 64 selected, but they're not in the middle of my view, I cannot find my selection, hit the dot or del button on your numpad, and it centers your view on your selection. Can be very handy if you've lost your way a little bit. So here in the back we've got 2 holes. Let's look at this one first. Now I can close this in a lot of different ways. One is, if I hold Alt on my keyboard, I can select the entire edge around the hole in one go. Now I could just hit F on my keyboard and it will fill the hole automatically. This is a fix and it would be printable, it's fine. But if we have a look, you can see, well, there's actually a straight line from this to this point. It's not smooth in the way that I would like. The thing is, it fills this with triangles that look like it's a flat surface, which is fine if it is flat, but it isn't flat right now. I want to have more control, so I'll delete this face and fill it with geometry the way I would like it. In this case, if I look, this is a square, I would like to have a point in the middle of this gap. A way to do that is selecting 2 points and then hit F to just create an edge. So I haven't created a face, I've just created an edge going from one end to the other. Then I want to have a point in the middle of that edge, and I can do it by subdividing. I just subdivide once and it creates a point in the middle of that edge. Then select 4 points around the gap and hit F every time. If you have a big hole like this, and this happens for me sometimes, it can be a lot of work, but the end result is pretty much always clean. In this case, the hole is closed nicely, but if we look from the bottom, you can see this is very much a straight line, and actually the leg should be rounded a bit, so we can just move that edge until it's nicely rounded, and look from the side. See, that looks very clean. It's a good closed hole. I'll go select non-manifold again. This is really the way to do it. You do select non-manifold and you fix something, and you keep doing select non-manifold until there is nothing left to select. In this case we have a hole in the back, and this one, sometimes if you mirror objects you get misaligned verts, and you can get a gap a little bit like this. This is a very clean one because I tore it myself. What you can do very simply is merge the points. I select one, I select another, and you hit Alt M. That is the merge menu. Now you can merge at the center. In this case that would offset it here, or you can control at which point it is merging. So I select this one first, this one last, and I do Alt M, and I merge it at the last, and it zips up this gap really nicely. If I were to do the same thing but select them the other way around, suddenly it goes in that direction. So you have to be very conscious of the order of selection. So I select, hit Alt M, and thankfully it remembers the type of merge I did last. So I just hit like this, Alt M at last, and you can do this multiple times. I have had models where I've done this a couple hundred times to really fix a model. You don't want to, you might be able to automate some of it, but merging is very, very helpful. I'll select nothing, select non-manifold, and it has this edge going all the way around the arm. If I look in wire view, it's very clear there are a whole bunch of faces on the inside of the arm. This is artificial. I put it in there myself because I wanted to show you this. But it does happen from time to time in models that you make, especially if you're merging multiple shapes into one. You can end up with this sort of thing. There are telltale signs though, even before you do the non-manifold. Look at the color of the background. Now, if you look here, there are actually two faces. You look, it goes in the arm, out the other side, and then on the background. So it's a little bit darker than here. But the more faces that lie on top of each other, the darker they become. So this is a lot darker, so there are more faces here than here. And if we look around a little bit, you can see that, you see, let's have a closer look. Here, the model is lighter than here. So here there must be an extra face. That's an indicator for a problem. If you have a part of your model that gets darker without you knowing why it gets darker, there's probably a problem there. This is something you have to learn to look out for as you learn Blender 3D. See, lighter, darker. Very hard to spot, but as soon as you check for non-manifoldness, it shows up. In this case, these are all faces. They are selected by selecting non-manifold. I can hit X and just delete all the faces and be done with it. In this case, the model, I would say, is completely clean. So the trick is, if you have a hole, fill it with faces. If you have extra points, extra edges, extra faces, make sure you remove them to make a clean and printable mesh.